Good morning, everyone. My name is Chum Sna, and today I'm very excited to show you guys our game To Be Free. And this is an Intel participatory project which uses a game as a main method, and we dedicated to engaging the more people to know that the challenges faced by the bees and our food system. Yes, let's just get started.
I'm excited to introduce you to our educational participatory project, which uses a game as a main method and fosters deeper engagement by real-world visits to farms.
20 years ago, a young boy and his dad travelled to the countryside and got restless when he encountered fuzzing pollinators everywhere. His father explained that these pollinators were a symbol of a vibrant ecosystem. Years have passed, and the boy has become a father himself. As he retraces the same journey with his own son, he encounters a landscape dominated by industrialized farms and the deafening roar of machines, replacing the once serene sounds of pollinators, leaving him with an even greater sense of unease.
If the pollinators disappear, there will be far-reaching and potentially devastating consequences for our planet's agri-food system, ecosystem, and biodiversity. Meanwhile, an EU probe has revealed that UK shoppers may be purchasing counterfeit honey labelled as authentic organic honey, which often has added sugar or syrup to mislead consumers about the true origin and quality of the product. The dramatic changes in the landscape illustrate the deep links between commercial companies, the agricultural industry, and the honey industry. Retailers seek great profits, offers achieved by raising pesticide and fertiliser costs while reducing honey and crop purchase prices. This financial pressure forces farmers and beekeepers into a dilemma. On the one hand, by early 2022, roughly 90% of the UK's consumed honey has been imported. The absence of a robust honey testing regime in the UK has led to imported adulterated honey flooding the market at lower prices, impacting the competitiveness and pricing of locally produced honey. On the other hand, the pollinator population in the UK has declined in recent years, due to a variety of factors, including habitat loss, pesticide use, and climate change. Honeybees and other pollinators are responsible for the pollination of around 95% of the UK's crops, resulting of the existing farming practice that renders UK farmers highly reliant on synthetic fertilisers. The escalating fertiliser prices have increased energy expenses for farmers, potentially driving intensified farming and monoculture, thereby contributing to issues like habitat loss or degradation. Sugar beet in the UK plays a significant role in the country's agricultural sector. Sugar beet cultivation is mainly found in the eastern counties of England. The British government allows sugar production to use pesticides on sugar beet every year, resulting in a large quantity of deaths of honeybees. So we interviewed Matthew, a beekeeper at Holt Hall Apiary, about the current state of beekeeping in the UK.
Hey Matthew, can you tell us about the challenges you face as a beekeeper in the UK?
Sure, no problem. At the moment, it's a fact that around 90% of honey is imported, but 100% of UK honey tested in EU fraud investigation fails the authenticity test. UK's existing test regime doesn't detect honey, which leads to big retailers choosing to sell lower-price fake honey. British honey can't compete on price, and can only be sold on local farms, and many customers are unaware of this situation. Luckily, we beekeepers already collaborate closely with farmers. We sell beehives to farmers and help them enhance their hedgerows, which has helped them to significantly increase food production and provide habitat for bees. Our farm also works with schools on educational activities, as we believe that only by getting more consumers engaged in protecting bees and supporting British honey will we be able to reach out to the big retailers and change the situation.
By continuing to raise awareness, I believe we can turn the tide.
To get the public to know about the decline of pollinators, DEFRA has introduced policies aimed at safeguarding pollinators and also set some engagement tools to engage the public with policies. However, these efforts would benefit from more imagination and sophistication. Based on the current state of the bee dilemma and the policies and engagement tools in the UK, we developed an entire participatory process, including school activities, a 2-tier gaming tool, and real farm visits. engaging the public with relative policies in an interactive and enjoyable way, rather than leaving massive policies confined to lines of text. Before diving into the game, it is important to understand the strengths and weaknesses of existing policies. Farmers and beekeepers can turn their farms into bee-friendly farms through appropriate policies, encourage cooperation between farmers, and help them work together to improve their local environment through the ELMS, Local Nature Restoration Strategy. SFI helps enable hedgerows and boundaries, pesticide control and crop rotation. IPHB helps beekeepers train and support, achieve effective biodiversity and good standards of husbandry. However, all of these policies focus on the ecological dimension and lack consideration of income and welfare support for farmers. The combination of different policies will lead to increasing resilience of the habitat. For example, shared land ownership encourages cooperation and shared responsibility among owners. This policy allows the owners to collectively protect land. Rewilding honeybees by creating bee-friendly environments, protecting their habitat, and reducing pesticide use. Enhancing hedgerows provides valuable forage and nesting opportunities for bees by establishing and maintaining diverse hedgerows around the crop. Pesticide control focuses on reducing the use of harmful chemicals in agriculture and other sectors to minimise their impact on biodiversity. Supported by those policies, numerous organisations, including the British Beekeepers Association, BBKA, are committed to advancing beekeeping and environmental education. They prioritise professional training, public events, and community service. They also partner with schools to offer interactive educational experiences, like farm visits and hands-on activities, teaching students about wild bees and related policies. However, these policies have encountered some limitations in engaging small farms and bee farms effectively. For example, the rollout of ELMs, legislative and societal pressures for agriculture to meet net zero ambitions, and the progressive reduction of subsidies to farmers pose a crucial challenge to small and medium-sized farmers. Many small and medium-sized farmers would experience a net loss without the subsidy, and the removal of the subsidy could lead to the closure of some farmers' businesses. This leads to the limitations of these incentive policies to promote bee-friendly beekeeping or smaller-scale sustainable farming.
So how can our designers create a more benign interactive feedback mechanism between policymakers and bee-friendly small farms by raising awareness and engaging the public in an enjoyable way?
Our location is situated in Tamworth, east of Birmingham, and holds a pivotal position within the Beeline network in the United Kingdom. The bee farm here already works closely with neighbouring farms and schools such as Dorman G and Sun Farm, Woodend Primary School, and often held bee educational events. There are 3 main types of landscape space: grazing areas, forested areas, and beekeeping areas plus local farms. Holt Hall Apiary is a small beekeeping farm that already has a close working relationship with neighbouring farms and schools. Our project aims to provide these schools with our 2-tier gaming tool and engage more kids to learn about bee dilemmas enjoyably and interactively, and then visit real farms like Holt Hall Apiary. Based on collaboration with the local school and the local farm, our 2-tier game picked up Holt Hall Apiary and the surrounding area and transformed it into a board game and virtual interaction education experience. This region is renowned for its abundant natural resources and has become a magnet for numerous educational institutions and farms. Such attributes make it an ideal setting for the implementation of our forthcoming immersive educational tool. The geographic prominence of our site underscores its suitability for facilitating meaningful educational experiences. Holt Hall Apiary and surrounding farms serve as an optimal venue for the deployment of our 2-tier educational gaming tool, aligning seamlessly with our overarching educational objectives. Notably, it offers an invaluable opportunity for authentic, hands-on learning about agricultural environments, governmental policies, farming methodologies, and livestock management practices. This alignment renders it a highly valuable and synergistic partner in our project, enriching the educational quality of our endeavour. Now, introduce our 2-tier gaming tool, a holistic learning experience, children with guidance from adults. Explore beekeeping and land management through a strategy board game. On the other side, we have a captivating screen experience that takes children on an adventure through simulated scenarios in Unreal Engine. Both tiers are closely connected.
One day, the boys' school held a climate change-themed event. Physical board games plus digital simulations attracted the interest of a wider number of students. 12+ students tend to explore more about the challenges different stakeholders face and their decisions through the board game. And 7 12-year-olds love to explore virtual scenarios and learn relative facts through the Unreal Engine.
Now let's dive into our board game mechanism. The first thing we need to know is that this is an educational game based on strategy cards with 3 participants: the beekeeper, the farmer, and the retailer.
So how we can introduce the real-world map into the hexagons? Firstly, we selected a hexagonal area with diverse topography and land types as our study site. We divided this area into numerous hexagonal plots, each covering 8 hectares, and categorized them into 10 distinct land use types. Then, they were further aggregated and subdivided into larger hexagons, each covering 120 hectares. This formed the foundational layout of our gaming map. Here, you can see the transformation of the different land types and how we refine the map. And then, roads are classified into 3 primary types: along, intersection, and midpoint. These 3 types can be paired together in various combinations, resulting in 6 unique road patterns. After numerous iterations, we arrived at the game map you see today.
On the front of the roll card to know the icon, name, and unique abilities, and learn about the types of land that can be occupied, and on the back side of the roll card to show starting resources and facilities that can be built on different land types. Let's simply simulate the gaming process. On your turn, you need to play 4 tokens to perform the occupation. To place tokens, you have 2 options. You can choose to play single token, which means that land is exclusively yours, and then according to the rules, you can place the corresponding facility model on the token. Alternatively, you can also choose to place double tokens on the same piece of land. Indicating that the land is open to cooperation, then you can place a cooperation facility on it during other players' turn. They can also choose to establish their tokens on this land, signifying a successful cooperation. The task is to increase each one's benefit, striking a balance between collaboration and business expansion. The game allows players to expand their business quickly, reaping short-term benefits. However, the introduction of disaster can render their expansion futile, wiping out exposed assets in an unpredictable manner. Investing in collaboration with other players' providers a slower, yet robust strategy since part of the assets become resilient to disasters. As an example, a flood can wipe out the harvest. Collaboration between beekeepers and farmers provides a more resilient landscape for both, hence limiting the impact when disaster strikes. What is best then? Expand quickly betting on your luck? Work together at the expense of fast returns?
The game we have just explained takes place on a physical board. Moreover, we have added another virtual feature in parallel to it, in the shape of a screen that can visualize the scenarios, physical landscape, and challenges as it develops on the board game.
Unreal Engine is a good tool to bridge the physical event in the room and the physical reality in the real site. It helps you understand how our game transforms from the actual site, and you can also learn about the policies that shaped the game through interactive policy cards. Furthermore, it also allows you to engage with beekeepers and get to know the latest news about visiting the apiary. Therefore, we extracted the space of Holt Hall Apiary and the surrounding grazing and forested landscape and abstracted it into a play scene. Meanwhile, the Unreal scenes showcase particular scenarios like floods or droughts, mirroring the challenges faced in the board game. In addition to simulating disasters in board games, Unreal Engine can also simulate scenarios in the site of our choosing. For example, players can learn basic information about the research apiary by interacting with the Holt Hall Apiary Cooperative Farmer. With over 140 hives, Holt Hall Apiary is a small independent apiary specialising in British honey, filling around 16,000 jars of honey in 2021. Their bees are mostly Apis mellifera and European honeybees. They also work with schools such as Woodend Primary School. In this game scenario, players can learn about a range of policies and initiatives developed by the UK government that aim to promote sustainable agricultural practices and protect important pollinators, especially bees. Players can also interact with beekeepers in a scenario that allows beekeepers to sell hives to farms, help increase crop yields by providing targeted pollination services, and engage in educational dialogue about the dilemma of the honeybee, and how beekeepers and farmers can work together to restore bee habitats and reduce pesticide use. Players also learn about the complex relationship between the economy, beekeeping, and agriculture. For example, honey is in short supply in the UK. However, many farming practices have reduced the number of wild bees and honeybees, leading to a reliance on honey brought in from other countries. These interactive features provide real-time feedback, fostering a learning interest among children who may not be initially drawn to the board game version.
So how to connect the physical board game with the virtual simulation to make the educational experience more fun?
For example, when you choose to rapidly expand your business and occupy the land of other players, you also take on the risk of potential disasters that could affect your land. If you trigger a drought, your apiary will start catching fire. If you trigger flooding, your ecological land will gradually be inundated. When you choose to purchase policy cards to protect your facility in the board game, you can also learn more details about these policies in the digital game and explore how they will make your land transition more resilient. When you're building abstract facilities in a board game, the Unreal game also can help you to visualize the building process and feel the impact on the actual site, allowing players to have a better interactive gaming experience while understanding the dilemma of the bees and related policies.
Now let's go back to the little boy's story. After playing the 2-tier gaming tool at school, the little boy learns about the apiary tour through the Unreal Engine and becomes very interested in it. In this tour, he learns how to make a bee hotel and other measures to protect the bees. Here, children take photos of the real site, and when they return to school, they can upload these photos through the Unreal Engine, which can be used in the next iteration of the game.
So far, our 2-tier engaging game has undergone 3 stages of evolving. Stage 1, we drew inspiration from various classic board games and had the idea of implementing simulated sites with Unreal Engine, and we actively engaged in discussions and exchanged ideas with experienced game designers. Stage 2, we created a wooden board prototype and simulated the 3D environment of the farm. We exhibited it for interaction with children in a games-themed exhibition in June. Based on the children's performance and feedback during this event, we conducted further updates to the game. Stage 3, through iterative refinement of the game rules and numerical aspects, refines the link between the real site and the digital game and simulates the potential disasters in Unreal Engine. We ultimately crafted the 2-tier game to achieve a well-rounded gameplay experience. This version of the game was exhibited in a climate change-themed exhibition in October. However, there are some limitations of our game rules, such as overly complex rules, too long game time, and not enough connection with real farms. In the next stage, I'm dedicated to addressing these questions. How to engage more participants directly, how to make the game more fun, how does the game relate more closely to the actual site, how does the game show the long-term benefits of the policy, and then achieve a proven 2-tier engaging tool initiative.
By employing this immersive educational tool, farmers are able to share the basic data of their farm through the transition of our game. Students are fostered deeper engagement during their real-world visits to farms. The connection between the board game and reality in Unreal Engine greatly reinforces our educational goals, creating a more impactful and comprehensive learning experience.
This is all about our project. Thank you.
Congratulations for the consistency of the arguments as it is developed in this film. I had a question, which is this is a game, so it's a serious game in order to introduce people and kids, but not only into the complexities of this subject. I didn't completely understand whether what role or what kind of territory is included. Is it each time maybe simplified but real territory that is the board of the game? Is it? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And then the game is a way of introducing again people to the complexity, and is the goal, if it is a real territory that is at each time the board, to turn it into a kind of planning, of bee planning strategy on the territory in question?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because from our research, I feel like we're in a very complex environmental issue for the context. So we try to be more focused on the bees through the bee dilemma of the UK people to learn about the fact of the bees, and through the gateway, people can have the border discussion in understanding more complex environmental situation, not just about the bee, but also about climate change and also the things more importantly related to the farming practice in the UK today, how it can be transformed into more sustainable farming through this strategy, but it's kind of ideally, yes.
Yeah, so it's a beehive of ideas about environmental issues generally. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. I mean, I think the concept of the game and everything is amazing, and obviously so much work has gone into it, so well done. I just kind of had a question about the general subject, which was, given some of the issues you talked about local honey producers and beekeepers not being able to sell very easily in the UK, do you know about what sort of infrastructure they feel is needed to actually, or changes to policy? But I guess I'm particularly interested in sort of community level infrastructure that would be needed to have a thriving, sort of more locally owned honey market in the UK.
Yeah, apparently we talked to the beekeeper in the UK, and through the talking, we know UK don't have very test regime for the honey, so it's definitely most needed for the UK's market to have the test regime to have those tests for the imported honey, so those cheap fake honey cannot floating in the UK's market freely, because nowadays those honeys are very cheap, but they are mostly added syrup and sugar, so this is the most important thing. Yes.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for that. Well done. It's really thorough. It was a really clear narrative. The quality of the work's really good. It's really interesting. Sort of what you'll develop, and I think as you found out, it's really hard to make games, and so to make one that looks really engaging, I kind of want to play it. It looks really good. So well done. It's a really good piece of work. I think on its own terms, as trying to be an educational tool for young children, it's really successful, and I think in terms of executing that premise, it does it very well. But I think the question I have is the premise itself. And so what I'd like to see is the second version of this game, which is aimed at the farmers. And the reason I say that is because I think at the beginning you touch on quite a few issues that you don't fully pass out, like this idea of honey fraud. It's really interesting, right? But that point's the complexity of global supply chains. And I think the bit that got me is you said that the game could provide a more benign feedback mechanism for farmers, for DEFRA. And the big problem, of course, is that all the bees are dying because we're killing them with pesticides. And DEFRA's response is to do education in schools. But DEFRA's the regulator. They could just ban the pesticides. And it's we can't expect the school kids to save the bees when DEFRA could just ban the thing that's killing them, right? And so why don't they do that? And what does honey fraud tell us about global supply chains? And what is the role of big agribusiness in this, who are making all this money? And so do we need a more benign feedback mechanism when DEFRA is cutting the subsidies that farmers need to, and put these policies in, it's supporting big agribusiness, many farmers are going out of business. Surely need a more sort of antagonistic feedback mechanism between like farmers and people who live in the rural economy, and sort of the big players, like the supermarkets, the supply chains, the agribusiness, the government, the regulator. And so I quite like to see the sort of second version of this game, where instead of it being like, how can we ask the school children to think about things a bit differently, it's like, how can we force the people in power to make them different? And I think that's the big question that for me was sort of intimated at the beginning, but not really resolved by the end. And that would be my big comment, I think. But great piece of work, otherwise. Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it was really, really interesting, and it's clearly the product of a lot of really hard work. And I think the way, as a form, it seems to be capable of integrating a recognition of the political nature of some of these ecological phenomenon is really interesting and really generative. And I think integrating that into the game sort of mechanism in the way that you do in balancing a compromise between collaboration and expansion is really nice. I think that was a really nice touch. I have a comment and then a question. My comment is that I think to an extent you flatten some of the complexities around the existing question of pollinator decline in the United Kingdom. There's a statistic relatively early on about the increase in honeybees in relation to the increase in solitary bees, like bumblebees. That's really complicated, and some people think that the more honeybees we have, the less other types of pollinators we have. But this is a game about promoting honeybees. You're not going to solve that, but I think you need to at least recognize that complexity and articulate it with this question of the capacity for honey production to, generate wealth in local communities and to sort of offset those supply chains. There's a compromise to be made there. I'm not saying that people should not produce honey, but you need to recognize the fact that honeybees are not the only pollinator, but they are the only pollinator that is capable of generating wealth for rural communities, perhaps. That said, under ELMS, that's probably not necessarily the case anymore. That, I think, needs some recognition because there's some nuance there. Obviously, that nuance is not going to necessarily be able to inform the metric of a game for children, which is a valid, recognition. My question about the game is, how do you foresee practically the two tiers working together? Would you play the game at the same time as running the engine? For example, would you do one and then the other in an educational sort of situation? How do the two work together on a practical level? Are they simultaneous, one then the other? How do you see that working? That's my main question.
Yes. Apparently, our board game is our main game, but it's mostly for the 12+ students to work on the game. And when we play the game, Unreal Engine is kind to help to simulate those kind of scenarios and challenges they faced on the game. For example, especially when some players trigger flood, Unreal Engine can simulate the flooding and let the players know, oh, it's flooding, so it will be extend the game experience. And it can also Unreal can also be telling the players the rules before the game, know the context of the game and know what's players and their different situation, that kind of stuff. Yeah, so it's kind of Unreal is supporting the board game. Yes.
Thanks, that makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, thanks.